Well, hello there folks. So, as promised, we're going to take it to the max with the biscuits today. The good old chocolate hobnob, milk chocolate hobnob. I love a hobnob just as a plain biscuit, to be honest, but they can be a little dry. So they're great for breakfast, but you need something else to drink with it. Add chocolate to it, just makes the whole thing great. So enjoy your biscuits now. And the starter's about to appear, which I'd like you to have a go at whilst I finish this. Okay, so here it is. We're going to pause the video now and give you about a good few minutes to have a go at that. If you need to use brackets, this top one at the top here, you could be doing that, couldn't you? 3 and x and 4 to help you. And for the double brackets, you may be going with the old x and 5 and x and 4, something like that, and then remembering to peanut the number of x's. You have x squared there and all that sort of thing. Anyway, I'll let you get on. Right, now I'm going to talk through how I would do it without doing it. I'm timesing both things by 3, so I get 3x, 3 times 4 is 12. Times both by x, x times x is x squared. 1 times x is x, just keep the negative in there. X add 5 times x plus 12. Well, I know I'm going to get x squared. I know at the end I'm going to get the product, which is 4 times 5 is 20. And then I know I'm going to get the sum of those two numbers, will give me 9x in the middle. X plus 6 squared means x plus 6 times x plus 6. So I'm going to get x squared. 6 add 6 will give me 12x. 6 times 6 will give me 36 on the end. Expanding this one, 3x times 4x. 3 times 4 is 12. X times x, x squared. So you multiply the numbers and the letters separately. 3 times 2 is 6. X times y is xy. It's a negative there, so there's still a negative there. Right, moving over to the other side. Factorizing, biggest number going into 6 and 8 is 2, so we should have a 2 there. 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8. Y goes into them both, but there's no other numbers there, so y times y is y squared, y times 2 is 2y. Right, now factorizing a quadratic, and we need a bit more space here, don't we? There we go. I know I'm going to get y and y. I'm thinking factors of 12. 1 times 12, but 1 add 12 is 13. 2 times 6, but 2 add 6 is 8. 3 times 4, 3 add 4 is 7. So it's plus 3 plus 4. It doesn't matter if it's the other way around. Oh, I've got a bit of biscuit in the back of my throat. Right, moving on. We're now going to have y and y. Now I know, because they're multiplying to make negative 9, one will be positive and one will be negative. I also know that the factors of 9, or factor pairs, are 1 times 9 or 3 times 3. And I've got to have one of them negative and one of them positive, so it makes 8. What I'm really looking for is the pair of numbers where the difference between them is 8. Difference between 3 and 3 is 0. Difference between 1 and 9 is 8. If that said negative 9y, it would be minus 9. As it's positive, it'll be the plus 9 and then the negative 1. Now this other one is related to that. You saw the 3 and the 3. This is called the difference between two squares. So if you've got a square number and just something squared, then it's something to look out for, because the difference between 3 and 3, as I said before, is 0. So you'd get 3y minus 3y makes no y's. And finally, this one, almost a trick question in a way, because it's not a, well, it is a sort of quadratic, but it's not one that goes into two brackets. 2 goes into 6 and 8, y goes into y squared and y, so I can have 2y outside. 2 times 4 is 8, y times y is y squared. and 2 times 3 is 6. At this point, we'll just pause. If there's any questions you want to ask, now is the time to do it. So today's objective is going to be not just solving questions involving shapes, but involving shapes and quadratics. And quadratics means double brackets. Actually, we're just looking at all sorts of things where brackets may come into it, and we're sorting out problems involving shapes. Right, now it's time to pause the video for 5 minutes and jot down each of these questions and have a go at as many of them as you can in that time. So take your time, write them all down, do any maths, and if you're thinking I don't know how to solve this, do some maths with it, see where you get. 5 minutes, off you go. Okay, first question. Write an expression to find the area of the rectangle. Well, when you work out the area of a rectangle, it's the length times the width, isn't it? The length is 3x plus 5, the width is 7. So the area is going to be 7 times 3x plus 5. Now, I've written an expression. In fact, I've done more than that. I've written an equation. So all I needed to do was that. They want you to simplify the expression. So in a way, I think that is in its simplest form. But if you expand it, that may help. So if we expand that, we would get 7 times 3 is 21x. 7 times 5 is 35. So that is, both of those are equally valid. Actually, they're both in their simplest form in their own way. Right. Write an expression to find the perimeter of the rectangle and then simplify it. Well, the perimeter is the distance all the way around the outside. So you could say it's going to be 3x plus 5 plus 7x plus 2. Now, unless they've got a negative value for x, they've got these the wrong way around, haven't they? Because this is the shorter side, but that doesn't matter. Then we're going to need another 3x plus 5 for this side here, and another 7x plus 2. So that would get you your first mark, just writing all of that out. And then to simplify it, we add all of our x's. 3 plus 7 is 10. Then we're going to have another 10 there, aren't we? So it's 10x, and we've got 5, 7 plus another 7 makes 14. So 10x plus 14 is the perimeter of the rectangle. And we may well have, in the exam, you may well be told what the perimeter is, and then you put that number down there and solve the equation. More of that later. If x equals 2.5, find the perimeter of the rectangle. Well, it's the same one as this, isn't it? So I'm just going to substitute 2.5 for x. So 10x means 10 times x. So 10 times 2.5, and then add 14. So 10 times 2.5 is 25, add 14 is 39. And if they'd given us any units, we'd put the units on there, but they haven't. Write an expression to find the perimeter of the shape and then simplify it. So we've got all of these to be added together, but on top of that, this one here is going to be another, well, if it's 2x plus 4 to there, it's got to be the difference between 2x plus 4 and x plus 5 to make up there. That's another x plus 1. And here, we need another, we've already got the 2, we need another 3x. And if we add all of those together, we're going to get something quite surprising. I think we're going to get 3, 10, 12, 15, 16, 20x. And we're going to get 5, 7, 11, 12, 14. Which is lovely. And the reason I was sort of pausing before going over then scratching my head a little bit was I was expecting it to be the same as this. And some of you may have noticed that I made a bit of a mistake here. I've got 10 there and I've got 10. So I should have 20x plus 14. Okay folks, that's that one done. We're going to move on to some real GCSE style questions next. Here's your question. Sort of question that a lot of people leave blank. I'm going to pause the video. I'd like you to not write down everything. I'd like you to copy the diagram, and then I'd like you to sort of read it through and write down what bits you think you need in order to work it out. We're trying to work out the length of a side of the small square at the end. So that there is what we're trying to work out, but we can't work out that straight away. We're going to have to do some maths with the rest of it and some of the sorts of maths that we were doing earlier. Anyway, I'll be quiet. You will pause the video, give you a few minutes, 5 minutes to really get into the problem before I talk through it. Now the beginning bit up here is just setting the scene really. They're just saying that the machine part is made by cutting a small square. So this square's not here, this is all metal, a square with a square punched out of it. This bit where it says the dimensions of the machine part are shown in the diagram, all measurements are in centimetres. That bit's important, that'll come in at the end. But to be honest, that's not so important. The important bit is the perimeter of the small square is 2/3 of the perimeter of the large square. And then they say work out the length of a side of the small square. Well, what the flip, you might think. Well, it's possible. The first thing to do is think, well, we've just done writing down the perimeter of one of these. So the small square, that's going to be x plus 4, x plus 4, x plus 4, x plus 4. You can write them all out the way we did, or I could, if I wanted to save a bit of time, use a bracket and say I've got 4 times x plus 4. We know how to expand that. 4 times x is 4x, 4 times 4 is 16. Then we've also got the large square, and that is 4 lots of 3x plus 4. Well, if I expand that, 4 3s are 12x, 4 4s are 16 again. Now what they're saying is the perimeter of the small square is 2/3 of the perimeter of the large square. So what does that mean? That means if I times this by 2/3, I would have 2/3 of it. That would be the same as a small square. So I'm going to make an equation that means that. So small square equals 2/3 of the large square. So 4x plus 16 is equal to 2/3 of. Now of means times. So, and we can times something that's a bit complicated by putting it in a bracket of 12x plus 16. Now there's 5 marks for this question. We would definitely have got 3 marks by now. You'd have got a mark for forming those, for each of those two. You'd have definitely got a mark for putting this equation together. Now if I expand the brackets, 2/3 of 12, well, 1/3 is 4, so 2/3 is 8x. Ooh, 2/3 of 16. Don't like that so much. So what is that going to be? That's going to be 2 times 16 is do I have to do that? Do I have to? What could I do instead of dividing all of this by 3? If I've got 2/3, I could. I'm going to times it by 2. So that's just expanding that. But I don't want to divide both of these bits by 3 because it's going to be nasty. So hang on, I'm getting in a bit of a... So let's start again. because it's 2/3 and I'm going to have to end up dividing a number by 3 which doesn't have 3 in it, let's times everything by 3 first of all. If I times everything by 3, that means I'll have 2 times that bracket on this side, and it means that this side is being times by 3. I'll now expand those brackets. 3 times 4x is 12x, 3 16s are 48, 2 12s are 24, so 24x, and we've got 32. Now we've got that equation, have a go at solving that. I could take 12x from both sides first of all, and I get 48 equals 12x plus 32. And then I could take 32 from both sides. 32 from 48 is 16. So that gives me 16 equals 12x. And then I would divide by 12 to get me 16 over 12 equals x. Well, 16 over 12, can we simplify that? 4 goes into them both, 4/3. So that means x equals 4/3 of a centimetre. And our original question was to work out the length of the side of the small square, and it is x plus 4. So it is going to be 4 plus 4/3. Now what's 4 plus 4/3? If it's a calculator one, you can whack it into your calculator. Otherwise, you could say 4 is 3/4 is 12/3, isn't it? Because every whole is 4, plus 4 over 3. That's giving us 16/3. 16 divided by 3 is 5 and 1/3, or 5.3 recurring. Right, new question. So make a little sketch of both of these shapes. I've just shrunk in the gap here so you could see all of the questions. And it says the perimeters of these two shapes are the same. You need to work out the value of x. So the game here is to make an expression for the perimeter, the distance around this shape, another one for the distance around that shape, make it into an equation, and then solve it. Okay, you've got a few minutes to do that. We're going to pause the video now. Right, so I've worked out the perimeter of that one, and they are the same. So we can call them both P. What we can also do is say that 14x plus 8 is equal to 18x take 6. And now all you've got to do is solve this relatively simple equation. I would suggest taking 14x from both sides, and when you've done that, add 6 to both sides so that you've got the x's collected to the right and the numbers to the left. That's going to give me, when I take 14x, that will give me 8 equals 18x take 6. Add 6 gives me 14 is going to equal, not take that out, that's going to give me 4x, isn't it? 18 take 14. So 4x is equal to 14. Then, as I'm sure you know, you divide by 14 by 4, 14 by 4, and you get 14 divided by 4, which is, just write it first of all, because that would do, because it just asked for the value. That is actually correct. 3.5 or 3.5, so 3.5 centimeters, because 3.5 fours make 14. Now the other thing it wanted to know was work out the length and width of the rectangle. Well, the length of the rectangle was 3x plus 4, so that'll be 3 times 3.5 plus 4, which is 10.5 plus 4, which is 14.5 centimeters. and the width is going to be 4 times 3.5, which we already know because we've just done 14 divided by 4, so that is 14 centimeters. So it's almost a square, that shape. It's nowhere near as long and stretched as they've made it look. Here's a nice little question. They love asking this sort of thing, and they keep asking them because people keep leaving them blank, so they think that means that you don't know what to do, but it's not that tricky. So we'll pause it. I want you to make a sketch of what you see there and split it all into rectangles would be my advice, and then you've got the lawn, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different parts of path. See if you can write down what the area of each of those bits would be just by doing length times width. Pause it and have a go. Right, so what you should have for the lawn is 2x times 3x is 6x squared. This part here is 2x high and 1 wide. 1 times anything is just itself, so that's 2x. 2x times 1 gives you 2x there. This is 1 wide and it's 1 high. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3x is 3x. And they say that the total area of the lawn and path is 100 meters squared. So all we need to do is write all of this stuff down, and I'm just going to do it the way I see it at the moment. 6x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 3x plus 1 is all equal to that 100. And then all you got to do is simplify. So that's 6x squared. We've got 2, 4 plus 3 is 7. 1 plus 1 is 2 equals 100. And look, we are almost there. All you need to do is take 100 from both sides, and that is that shown. Nice thing about those questions is when you get there, you know you've got it totally right. Now the last part of the question is to calculate the area of the lawn. In order to do that, you need to work out what x is worth, and it says show clear algebraic working. Now this is possible to factorize, or you can do it by using the quadratic formula, and to be honest, I think the quadratic formula is probably going to be a bit nicer, although the numbers are going to still be quite big. So quadratic formula being x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared take 4ac all over 2a, and that's true if we're talking about ax squared plus bx plus c. So what we're going to be putting into the calculator is x equals negative what b is, so that was 7, so it's negative 7, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 7 squared, which is 49, take 4 times 6 times negative 98 all over 2 times 6, because 6 was a. And you're going to have to do it twice. You put it in with the plus first of all and press equals, and then toggle back through your screen and press minus, and you'll get another answer that way. I don't have my calculator with me though, so I'm going to show you how I would do it by factorizing, and I'd like you just to note this down as it's going, and we might be able to practice some of these another time. But what you do first of all it's similar to the product rule on the normal one, because you've got a coefficient, a number in front of x. Do 6 times 98. Actually, no, that is going to be tricky, isn't it? That is going to be tricky. What you should find if you put all of that into there is that actually gets you to 49. So then you end up with minus 7 plus 49 divided by 2 6s are 12. So that gives you 42 divided by 12, which is 3.5. And the other solution you could have would be negative 7 take 49 over 12. Well, that's going to give you minus 56 over 12. And 56 divided by 12 is 4 2/3, but it's going to give you negative 4 2/3. And that can't be true, can it? Because you can't have a distance that is negative something in reality. So we can cross that one out and we go with 3.5. So that means that the area of the lawn, if you remember, was 6x squared. So we're going to do 6 times 3.5 squared. 3.5 times 3.5 equals times 6, and you should get 73.5 square meters. Okay. Right, here's a new question for us. Jake's making different badges of different shapes. Badge A is in a trapezium, and badge B is there, and it's got all that algebra all over it. It then says all measurements are in centimeters. Then the perimeter of badge A and the perimeter of badge B are equal. Oh, that sounds familiar. They love doing this sort of thing as a question, and you get a mark just for writing it all out to show what you know what the perimeter of each looks like and making an equation. So do that first. We'll give you a few minutes, then I'll go through it. And I make it that the perimeter of B is 12x minus 16, and of this one is 10x. The 24 is irrelevant because it's inside the shape. Let's just double check I've got that right. 4, 8, 10, 12x, 5, 10, 13, 16 to take away, 3, 6, 9, 10x, 1 plus 1 is 2, take 2 is 0. Okay, so now we can say that these two are equal to each other. So 12x take 16 must equal 10x. I can take 10x, and some of you may like to do this both in one go. Take 10x, and then I'm going to add 16. I could do it at one moment if I wanted to. 12 take 10 is 2, so that's 2x. And that's going to equal 16. Oh, that's an easy equation all of a sudden. Divide both sides by 2, and x is equal to 8. And that must be 8 centimeters. Now, the actual question is to work out the area of the badge. And the area of a trapezium, you need to be able to remember, is a half. It's not a half AB. It's... Oh, start again. The area is a half of the two parallel sides added together multiplied by the perpendicular height. So in the case of what we've got here, it's going to be a half of x. Let's put the actual values in. That's going to be 8 centimeters, isn't it? Oh, 3x minus 2, or 3 times 8 is 24. Take 2 is 22. So 8 plus 22, and then that's going to be multiplied by 24. 8 plus 22 is 30. Half of 30 is 15, so we're looking at 15 times 24. To do 15 times something, do 10 times, and then halve that to get 5 times, add them together, gives us 360 centimeters squared. That's that one done. Now I don't know how much time we've got left. If you want, it's always on there on YouTube. You can find it on PG Maths Tips, or you can find it on the share thing, wherever that is on the school thing as well. So if you want to do a bit at a time, then that's fine as well. But there's one more question always worth having a go at. So make the sketch, pause the video, give it a go, and then I'll talk through it. Right, so we've got to show that this is the case. We know that you find the area of a trapezium by doing a half, add the two parallel sides together, and then multiply by the perpendicular height. Well, in this case, this is a right-angled trapezium, so that is that there already. So we can say, and we know they've told us that the area is 46. So we can start off by saying, right, a half, and let's just put all of this in. 3x plus 1 plus 5x plus 3 times 2x plus 3, and that's all going to equal 46. So you get a mark for putting that in there, and you get a mark for showing that you've done that bit first of all. So we're almost there. We've got 2 out of 3 marks. To get the final mark, we just have to show that we can multiply things out and simplify. So let's start with this bracket here. Keep the half as at 3, plus 5 is 8x, plus 4, and then there's that times by 2x plus 3. Well, we don't actually have to have the times symbol, do we? Let's multiply both of these things by a half. A half of 8x is 4x, a half of 4 is 2, but all of that still needs to be multiplied by 2x plus 3. So in order to do that, might want to do a little grid. 4x plus 2, 2x plus 3. 4x times 2x is 8x squared. 2 times 2x is 4x. 3 4s are 12, so that's 12x. 3 2s are 6. And then we're going to add those two together, so we can then say that that is 8x squared plus 16x plus 6 equals 46. It's not looking too much like that. What could we do? Well, one thing is it's meant to equal 0 on that side, so let's start by doing that. Take 46 from both sides, gives us 8x squared plus 16x, take 40 equals 0. Still doesn't quite look like that, does it? But what is it that we can do? Well, we can multiply or divide any equation by whatever we like, as long as we do it all to both sides. What you may notice is that this is 8 times too much. This is 8 times too much. This is 8 times too much. So all we do at the end is divide both sides by 8. That gives us x squared plus 2x, take 5, is equal to 0. And you may think, well, we got our 2 marks a long time ago. That's a lot of work for 1 extra mark. But you're never quite sure when you're going to get to that bit. And the important thing is just to keep on doing anything that occurs to you to do. And don't worry about it too much beyond that. Last thing it says is solve the equation x squared plus 2x minus 5 equals 0, giving your solutions correct to 2 decimal places. The fact that it said that means I'm not going to waste my time and try to factorize it, because it won't factorize. You've got to use the quadratic equation. So pause the video, have a go, and then watch what I'm about to do, just to check. So quadratic formula, we're looking at ax squared plus bx plus c as the format for our a's, b's and c's, and then x is going to equal negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, take 4ac. Every time you need to use it, if you need to go and look it up, fair enough, but before you do, write out as much of it as you can. And even writing it down, making a mistake, thinking, I know there should be something over here, get somewhere to it, before you know it, you'll have it down. I know a lot of you have got it already. So x is going to equal negative b, so that's negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times a. Well, a is 1 because we've only got 1x squared, and C is negative 5 all over 2 times 1. So 2 times 1 is just 2, isn't it? So that's going to be negative 2 plus or minus the square root of, and you can do this with your calculator, you're going to be using your calculator anyway. 2 squared is 4, 4 times 5, negative 20, but when you take a negative you add, so that should give you 4 plus 20, which is the square root of 24, which is a third, which is why we're not going to get something very nice. So now you pump that into your calculator